It's here! The Xbox One is here. It might be a rubbish name, but it is finally part of our lives. We know what it is. Sort of. There's kind of a lot of stuff happened in that event, and it was kind of difficult to keep track of it all. So I've made this video, my top 5 takeaways from the Xbox One event. Spoilers, not all of them are positive points. In fact, none of them are. Now, unlike at the PS4 reveal, we actually got to see what the Xbox One looked like. And oh god, is it ugly. No wonder they're so obsessed with having TV functionality with it. It looks like an old VCR. In the grand scheme of things, it kind of doesn't matter that it's ugly as hell because, you know, that has very little effect on its actual performance. We're still just going to sling it underneath our TVs and plop a disc in it and make it do its thing and never look at it again. But at the same time, people are going to have to save up a lot of money to buy this thing, and when you visualise it in your head as just this horrible black monstrosity, then, you know, it's hard to get kind of motivated about it. Maybe Sony did the right thing on not showing their machine first. I'm not saying that the old Xbox looked amazing or anything, but at least it looked like it was futuristic, that it was some kind of advanced piece of machinery that was worth, you know, spending half your paycheck on. But when it's just this kind of black box that looks kind of ancient and retro, I just don't know what they were going for with that. This weird kind of checkerboard pattern where it's like grated on one side and then smooth on the other, but different on the bottom. What's that even about? Why would you think that was a good idea? Clearly someone has done the maths on it and they do have a target audience in mind with that appearance, but I'm just struggling to figure out who that target audience actually is, other than, you know, hipsters or anyone with a general fascination with VHS players. It would be easy to think that Kinect took a bit of a backseat this time around, but if you really think about it, Kinect was actually everywhere. They were just more subtle about it this time. They didn't have Usher dancing on stage, they didn't bring on harmonics developers or anything like that, but every other bit of interaction with the Xbox One was done through a Kinect style interface. For all that fuss they made about the wonderful new controller with its 40 new innovations, whatever the hell that means, did you ever actually see anyone use it? No, it was all gestures and voice commands and all sorts of other rubbish, proving that Microsoft is still under this very strange delusion that people would rather wave their arms around like a lunatic than simply press a button to make something happen. I think the big difference this time though is that the Kinect is no longer this optional peripheral, it's a key part of the machine. From what we've been hearing, the thing won't even turn on if you haven't got the Kinect plugged in, and there's still rumours flying about that you'll have to configure the Kinect to even get into the console once you first turn it on. And that's quite worrisome, because it's all well and good saying, oh, this is the brand new Kinect, look, it's got this wide angle lens now, you can be 4 foot closer, it can pick up 6 people and wrists and heart pressure and I don't know what. Microsoft seem to have forgotten the old Kinect struggles to get one person correct. So perhaps it might have been worth their time making sure they could get that right before they make it compulsory. Just a thought. The Xbox One event sent out a very clear message, one that I've been expecting for a while. The Xbox is not about games anymore. Think about the number of times they said the word games compared to TV.
TV, 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 TV.
Television, television, television.
Television, television, television.
Hell, even the Halo announcement was for some TV series that probably has nothing to do with the Xbox One. And even when they decided to actually show some games, it was Call of Duty and EA Sports titles. The most generic mass market games you could possibly think of. It kind of makes sense though, because they were broadcasting the event on TV, funnily enough, so of course they were going to go for the absolute lowest common denominator. But at the same time, you still very much got the feeling they were trying to sell you an entertainment hub that just also happened to play games as well, rather than it being any kind of focus. Then again, maybe they're saving their more game-centric presentation for E3, which would make sense. However, Microsoft's previous history with E3 tells us otherwise.
With Kinect and Bing on Xbox, you can use your voice to find the entertainment you want instantly.
Xbox, Bing, Lego.
The two most controversial issues surrounding the new Xbox, that of how it's going to handle second-hand games as well as this whole always online functionality kerfuffle, weren't even addressed at the conference itself. Instead, that was left for journalists to try and piece together during the after show. So here's what we know so far. Supposedly what's going to happen is each Xbox One game will come with some kind of identifier, be it a CD key or some kind of data on the disc, we're still not clear on that. And then you install that game from the disc and it's added to your account. But if someone else tries to use that disc on a separate account, it will say, this identifier has already been used. So you must now pay a fee, most likely the full 100% retail value of that game, and then you can add it to your account. It doesn't exactly eliminate secondhand games, but it makes secondhand games completely worthless because you are just paying the same fee again. Which is exactly how it works on the PC at the moment through Steam and stuff like that. You know, pretty much any big PC game you buy, it's just a Steam CD key, and if you want, you can start to install it from the disc and then apply, 5 gigabytes worth of updates once you've connected to Steam. So, what's the big issue? Well, I'm not sure retailers are going to be so keen on that whole thing. As I've said before, that's kind of like saying to them, hey, do you want to stock our competition instead? Because there's no actual value of you selling these, because of course GameStop and Game and all that make almost all their money from second-hand sales, which are now about to be wiped off the map. This is of course assuming that Sony doesn't also do the same thing, which we don't have in concrete information yet, so who knows where that's going to go. As far as this whole always online thing goes, you of course need to be online during the initial registration process so the key or whatever can be checked. But then you also have to reconnect every 24 hours for some reason that's not clear yet. There's also been talk that there's some kind of trading process whereby you can say, I will give up my license to play this game in exchange for something. No much information on that either. Also, all the information I've just given you has been denied by various sources, and then reconfirmed by other sources, and then denied by other ones. All of these sources are, of course, from Microsoft itself, which leads me into my biggest problem with this whole Xbox One thing, and my number one takeaway from the Xbox One event. Whatever way you look at it, Microsoft were horribly ill-prepared for answering the questions they must have known people were going to ask. For months since the announcement of the PS4, there have been probably hundreds of articles about how terrible the new Xbox is going to be and all these draconian online functionality bullshit that may or may not be true. And this was meant to be the moment where we knew facts, where Microsoft could turn around and say, okay, this is how this works, this is how this works, it's not as bad as you think. But no, instead of that, we got one person saying one thing, one person saying another, someone else saying something else entirely, and then it all boiled down to the stock, oh, we'll talk about it more in E3 later in a couple of weeks. And that's just not good enough. This event was already super late as it is. For them to say, oh, we're going to delay the announcements that people actually care about another couple of weeks is madness. Within the next couple of months, people will have decided what console they're going to save up for. Very few of us can afford both, so we're going to have to choose a side. And at the moment, Sony owns a massive amount of the mindshare. Even though they haven't actually said that much about their machine, there just isn't all this negative press surrounding it. So for in order for Microsoft to tip the balance back in their favour, they're going to have to pull off the most amazing, thought-provoking and informative E3 presentation that we've ever seen. And I somehow doubt they can pull that off. It's just too much to ask of one single event. And even then, that leaves, 2 or 3 months before people made up their minds? Maybe if Microsoft had prepared a few more speeches about how they respect consumers and their rights, and less about how totally amazing Kinect is and Skype is somehow this wonderful new experience that no one's seen before, they would be in a different position. But they're not, and they have very little time to try and claw their way out of that hole. But then again, maybe they just don't care about gamers anymore. Maybe they think the Call of Duty and the FIFA and the fantasy football and the NFL crowd is enough to see them by with this new machine. And maybe they're right. All I know is that I'm not part of that demographic, and as it stands, I'm not particularly excited about Xbox One. Poor show.